All right, everyone. So while speaking to Chris Van Fleet, Carlito talked about the difference between Triple H's leadership and Vince McMahon's. Here's what he had to say. I don't want to sound like a suck up, right? If you say something bad when you're not with the company, you're bitter. If you say something good, you're a suck up. I enjoy the Triple H era 20 times more than I did or I do the Vince McMahon era. Yeah, I think what he's doing, he's done a youth movement, which wasn't, they didn't have that in the past. It doesn't really help me out now, but I appreciate that's the way the business should be going. So, there's just a lot of wrestlers who really like how Triple H is, you know, operating now. And it's always a little bit unfair. And you got to obviously take all the legal stuff that Vince is dealing with because that's a whole nother thing. So we're going to take all that out. And that's not what we're talking about. But I do think that with Vince, when you're someone who built the company in the way he did, right? And you're stretching all the way back to the 80s and you continue to just build and build and build. Um, I think when you're someone who built the company for that long, at some point when you're no longer, like just the times changing, it's tough to kind of change with them. And I think Triple H is the perfect kind of guy to take over the role because he was able to change with the times here. And what I mean by that is because he was a wrestler and he was under Vince, in that sense, and he's been on the other side of it now in management. He can see both sides. He understands when you talk about a youth movement, he understands how, number one, how tough it is for a superstar who's not getting an opportunity or, who isn't getting a shot or it feels like they're buried or something like that. He understands that frustration. He understands the injuries that they're facing and how they're feeling after long road trips and all of that kind of stuff. And that just helps you. It gives you a different perspective. Whereas Vince, what he remembers a lot of the time is from, when so you start out with, in Hogan and you have this huge era, just fantastic, and then it hits kind of a brick wall. And now you're fighting for your life against WCW. So that time in the company was so much different than it is now. And I don't know if Vince, and I don't have any inside knowledge of this, it's just going off everything, that people within the company are saying. It just seems like Vince never really understood that transition. He was still kind of stuck in that other mindset. And the fact that Carlito brings up, hey, there's a youth movement here now, I think that's a telling statement where, that's kind of the key. And that's one of the reasons WWE beat WCW. Like that's kind of the shocking thing that Vince wasn't able to make that transition because the reason WWE beat WCW was because of the youth movement and they were forced into it, right? When you have Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan, when you have all these guys now in WCW, Bret Hart, right? And all of these guys who you built as stars are now in WCW, you got to go out and find your own stars. And they were able to do that with Triple H, The Rock, Mick Foley, Steve Austin. Some of those guys, like, especially someone like Mick Foley, he was obviously kind of a star even before because he was in ECW and other places, but they built them and they saved the company. So it's interesting to hear how Carlito and other people are talking about the difference between the two. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.